Hello, everyone. I'll be talking about transitioning from SQL Server to Babelfish for Aurora Postgres. For those of you who are new to Babelfish, we'll be really covering Babelfish in some details as well. So let's get started. The agenda for today's call, we are going to do a quick introductions. I'm going to quickly talk about the problem statement. What is it that we are trying to solve, which will lead into the MSSQL modernization options. And then we'll introduce Babelfish and finally the Infer, which is our SQL assessment tool. I'm co-presenting this with my partner, with my colleague, Minesh. But very quickly about me, I'm a co-founder and CTO of Cornerstone Consulting. Cornerstone Consulting is Dallas-based here in the US, and we help customers migrate and modernize their data journey in AWS. Prior to setting up Cornerstone, I was leading the data engineering teams at Thomson Reuters, and even prior to that, I was with Oracle Corporation. Minesh?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Minesh Chande, and I am a database architect at Amazon Web Services. My focus area is primarily migrating customers to AWS Cloud, and here I am presenting Babelfish for Aurora Postgres along with Suraj. Nice to meet you all.
Okay, before we really talk about Babelfish and the problem that we are trying to solve, we just want to know what your pain points are, right? Are you a DBA spending hours managing Microsoft SQL workloads in AWS? Or you are probably a T-SQL or a C# developer and are really excited about the features and benefits of Aurora Postgres. You could either be an application architect and are being tasked in 2025, in the next year, to modernize your legacy Windows workloads in AWS. You can even be an enterprise or a data architect and are asked to cut down your Microsoft licensing costs. Or maybe a senior executive with a mandate to reduce your total cost of ownership in AWS. So if you are one of these personas, I think the following slides will really resonate with you and maybe give you a way of how you could achieve your goals. So what really are your options, right? Considering what we just spoke about. The first one, which is very obvious, which is pretty much a playbook kind of a thing, it's to re-architect your application. You'll take your monolith and really break it down into microservices, and front-ended with an API gateway and with REST APIs talking with each other, right? But when you get down on that journey, when you get started with that journey of re-architecting your application, it's a time-consuming process. It takes time across multiple teams in order to break down that monolith into a pure microservice architecture. It also leads to conflicting priorities. Do you really spend your engineering teams, do they really spend time in re-architecting the application, or they ship new features? So that's an ongoing conflict that continues for the life of the project. It's expensive. You are looking at multiple facets of the application. You are looking at changing the code. You're looking at changing the database. You're looking at changing the front end of the application as well. And before you know, maybe your technology budget is exhausted. And there are no guarantees. We are in technology in the cloud. There are new features, new products being released almost every other day. So by the time you're done with your journey, there might be something new that's out there, which is even a better optimized architecture. The other option is you don't re-architect your application, but you re-platform your database just to get out of Microsoft SQL licensing costs. What you do is you rewrite your T-SQL code, make it PG-SQL friendly. You rewrite the application logic and then you just switch your drivers. As simple as it may seem, there's these monolith databases, as per our experience, has complex business logic embedded inside the database. Even though you could use the AWS SCT to do a majority of the migration, but it doesn't really work. There's some part of the code that is embedded inside the database that requires manual intervention. There are database engine limitations by itself. So for example, in Microsoft SQL, you could have identifiers with character lengths up to 128 bytes, 128 characters, sorry. In Postgres, you're capped at 63 characters. So that requires changes in your application code to make it Postgres compatible. The application changes itself can be very expensive because you are going to change the drivers from SQL to Postgres compliant, and then you're going to finally migrate your T-SQL code to PGSQL. Again, a cumbersome process, time-consuming process, focuses on the database layer itself, but again, it has its own challenges. We want to introduce you to a new option over here. If you haven't really heard of Babelfish, maybe that's something that's going to give you with a winning chance. So introducing Babelfish for Aurora Postgres SQL. You get to a point where you're Postgres ready before total Postgres adoption. What it does is it opens, you could connect to your Aurora Postgres engine on the default SQL port 1433 or the default Postgres port as well, which means it supports the T-SQL dialect. You don't really need to change your application code to make it PGSQL compliant. It works with your existing Microsoft drivers. So again, no need to change your drivers inside the application code, which significantly reduces your app redevelopment effort. Ultimately, it leads to database migrations with reduced complexity and more than likely in time and on budget. I'm going to hand it over to Minesh now to talk about the Babelfish architecture in details.
Thanks, Suraj. So yeah, as Suraj just mentioned, right, Babelfish for Aurora Postgres is an open source service that we released to the open source community. Babelfish as a project. It was launched in reInvent of 2021. So it's been more than a couple of years that Babelfish is out there. And when we talk about Babelfish, what we have essentially done is we took the Postgres core Postgres code, and then we have developed extensions out of it. So for example, we've created hooks in Postgres. So there is a hook for PG stat statement. There is an extension developed for understanding a native T-SQL dialect, as well as some of the data types, right? Because if you know a little bit about SQL Server and if you know a little bit about Postgres, there are some semantic differences between how some of the data types behave in SQL Server versus how it behaves in Postgres. Let me give you an example. If you know of money data type, right? In SQL Server, the scale and precision of money data type is 2 and 4, right? And does anyone know what the default data type is, money data type, scale and precision is in Postgres? So the default scale and precision in Postgres is 2 and 2, right? So it always rounds off the numbers that you may have in your tables with money data type. So as you can imagine, even a fraction point percentage difference can create a lot of differences, and you would need to make sure you thoroughly test your applications. So that is where Babelfish comes into the picture, and it reduces a lot of that effort. What we do here is when the SQL query or the T-SQL query comes in through the TDS port or 3DS protocol, which is 1433, it would understand that it is coming through a TDS port, and it would execute the query the same way, using the same data types as how SQL Server would do and return the results the same way, right? And if you are connecting from the Postgres port, which is the default port is 5432, it would essentially return the results accordingly. And that's what makes the whole migration time cut to a great extent, where some of the code changes, as well as some of the data performance, as well as analysis that you may have to do, is reduced to a great extent. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Suraj, and he will take you, talk a little more about how you can go about assessing whether your application is Babelfish ready or not.
Thanks, Manish. So yeah, you might have a question now that I understand Babelfish. How do I really know my existing SQL application is compatible with the Babelfish? So let me answer that question with a video rather than having a deck for you. So here it is.
Is your organization stuck with the technical limitations and financial burden of commercial databases? Database migration has traditionally been a complex and costly process, but not anymore. Introducing Infio from Cornerstone Consulting, your ultimate database migration companion, developed to help streamline and enhance your database migration process from start to finish. Offering you a cost-effective and efficient solution that seamlessly integrates with existing applications, minimizing disruption to business operations. Discover comprehensive assessment capabilities for SQL Server migrations that build on existing tools like Compass and SCT. Our approach goes beyond compatibility assessment alone, ensuring seamless data migration by understanding both financial and technical feasibility, as well as clearly mapping object dependencies. Infio first conducts a current state assessment to automatically gather essential information about the source database and environment. The tool provides several options to configure, validate, run, and generate reports for database migration assessments. It's as simple as clicking a button. After gathering the required information from the input files, the tool analyzes the data using advanced algorithms. This analysis generates a comprehensive report highlighting key insights, potential risks, and tailored recommendations. Let's take a look at the summary report generated by the tool. The report is divided into several sections, providing a complete overview of the database migration assessment. First, the tool assesses financial feasibility, ensuring clear reporting of the total cost of ownership, including associated costs such as licensing and compute across all migration patterns. Then, onto the technical assessment. The compatibility analysis section highlights the percentage of supported versus non-supported features in your schema and application SQL code. The conversion effort matrix highlights the work required to migrate non-supported features. This section lists non-supported features and offers potential workarounds, including those available in Babelfish or developed by Cornerstone in partnership with AWS. You'll then get to see a more detailed view of those supported and unsupported features for each object. Critically, the tool assesses the migration feasibility, specifically data migration using DMS. Finally, we map the database object dependencies so that the complexity of the database migration is clearly articulated. With Infio, database migration becomes simpler, more efficient, and less stressful, accelerating your migration assessment from weeks and months to days and even hours. Let Infio be your trusted companion on your data migration journey. Try Infio from Cornerstone Consulting today.
So yeah, that's your answer, right? Now you could download Infio from the AWS Marketplace and run your assessment at the click of the button. If you are interested in learning more, we have a session at the AWS booth tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. just to talk about Infio in depth. We also have a session at the PAS Summit on migrating MSSQL workloads at scale to AWS. That's tomorrow at 2 p.m. And you can reach out to us on LinkedIn, and my contact is in the QR code below. That's all we had for today. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.